What is up with them? We'll find out. We've got story time, obviously, as usual, and at the end we've got a little bonus activity, something that you can do with Conkers that I just found out about last night that I'm very excited by. But you know what we've got to do first? History Science News. This week, in 1890, the American government made a place called Yosemite a national park to protect the nature there. If there's any adults in the room, ask them now, what is special about giant sequoia trees? No, it's not that they are the tallest tree. That's a different kind of redwood, but sequoia trees, giant sequoias, are the most massive tree. And they're not small. They grow up to 87 metres high. They live for 2,000 years. One of the first ones discovered was chopped down, humans, and the stump was so big it was used as a dance floor. This week in 1846 was the first time that anaesthetic ether was used medically. So before that time, if you wanted to be knocked out for an operation, they would give you lots of alcohol or mixed herbs, or they would just press on your artery until oxygen stopped going to your brain and you passed out, or they would literally just knock you out, like just bonk you on the head. But then a travelling showman was showing off this new gas called nitrous oxide, and an American dentist in the audience noticed that a volunteer hit his knee and didn't seem to feel any pain. So this dentist called Horace Wells went back to his study, got stoked up on nitrous oxide, got his mate to take his tooth out and felt no pain, and he was like, yes, this is an amazing discovery. But when he sort of wanted to tell the world and like showed a huge group of people, demonstrated it, the patient that he was working on did cry out when the tooth was removed. And even though later on the patient said that he couldn't remember anything and he hadn't felt any pain, it was too late. Horace had been like shown to be a charlatan and no one believed him. Very sad. And this week, have you been watching your science news? So 2 years ago, scientists said they thought they'd found a lake underneath the ice on Mars. And everyone was like, really? This week, scientists said, yeah, we have found a lake on Mars, and actually there are 3 other ones there as well, underneath the ice. So it is possible, because we've looked at in oceans lessons before, that life can survive in water without necessarily having any sun. It's possible there is life on Mars in these lakes, or maybe the water is too salty, or maybe it's too cold and the water is too slushy. But can we just think about the fact that Mars is 34 million miles away and these lakes aren't even on the surface, they are underneath? How on earth do we know? Science! Right. There is no dinosaur discovery of the week, because we've got too much to do with conkers. We're just going to dig straight into our activity today. Conker trees, properly called horse chestnut trees. They're not native to Britain, but they were introduced to Britain in the late 1500s, so they've been here a really long time. They lived for about 300 years. A healthy leaf of a, so this is just a sort of bog standard leaf, a simple leaf. The healthy leaf of a horse chestnut tree is the beautifully named palmately compound, because it sort of looks like the palm of your hand. It's kind of like 5 leaves branching off from this stem, which is called the petiole. But we're going to look at diseased leaves. Have a look if you've got any leaves in front of you. If they're yellow, if there's any yellow on them, that might be because it's autumn, or it might be something called leaf blotch, which we will talk about later. Hello, Sophia. If it's leaf blotch on your leaf, if it's yellow, you probably can't pick it. If you've got some white and some brown tracks like this, it is very pickable, and that is what we are going to do now. What you'll see on this diseased leaf is, some are worse than others, lots of little white tracks. So this has been made by something called the horse chestnut leaf miner moth. And horse chestnut leaf miners, they lay their eggs on horse chestnut trees, and then the caterpillar, or the larva we could call it, it does what it says on the tin. It mines the leaf. It digs, eats through the leaf, creating this little tunnel. So this is quite a fresh one because it's white. Once they're a bit older, then they go really brown. But this is the kind of cool, gross and exciting bit. They eventually make themselves a little cocoon. So you might notice there's some little brown dots here on this leaf. And if you're lucky, there you go, look, that's a nice little, can you see that's a kind of glassy bubble? So eventually this caterpillar emerges from its cocoon as a moth, and then that moth lays eggs on the leaf, and then those eggs turn into larvae caterpillars, and then they mine the leaf, and then they form a cocoon, and they come out again, and this cycle goes on like 2 or 3 times in 1 year, and they can lay up to like maybe, well, between 30 and 40, sometimes even 100 eggs. So in summer you get a real burst of these moths, and it's really bad for the trees. Oh, can you see that's a fantastic bubble, isn't it? And if I can get that in focus, you might be able to, can you just see the little shape of an actual pupa in there that's going to emerge as a moth? Now, these ones have been laid quite late in the year. So what happens is, this little guy was going to fall from the tree and just lie in what we call the leaf litter under the tree until about April, May, and then emerge, and the whole thing starts again. So if you want to try and help, then the best way to try and help a horse chestnut tree that's riddled with these things is to clear away all the leaf litter in autumn, and then there won't be as many moths come out in the spring. Sorry, Edward feels sick, sorry. Yeah, so they've been moving north at a rate of about 30 kilometres per year. So if you live in Scotland, then they're still quite rare. I think actually if you live in Scotland, there are some websites that say, please can you let them know if you see one. But yeah, it's coming your way. So there's a bit of stuff in the news about them sort of having invaded from another country. Obviously you can't forget that horse chestnut trees are also from another country originally. Now, there is sort of some good news here, because they've made such a mess of my local conker tree. I couldn't believe that they weren't killing the tree. But a little brain teaser for you here. Oh, Lydia's found one, good. Your little brain teaser is a leaf miner moth can destroy 75% of the green part of a tree. Now the green part of the tree is the bit that collects energy from the sun, and the tree uses it to produce sugars. If a moth takes out 75%, 3/4 of the green bit of the tree only reduces its ability to make sugar by 25%. Why is that? You'd think it's taken away 3/4 of the tree's ability to make food, and therefore the tree's going to die because it hasn't got enough food. But actually the trees are still making enough sugar to survive, and that's because the leaf miners tend to only hatch out later in the year, when most of the photosynthesizing has been done, when the tree has already made a lot of sugar. So they look terrible, but luckily the moths are sort of destroying the trees late enough in the year that they've already made enough sugar. You can tell it's a leaf miner because there's little dots where the pupa are, and also they make these little tracks so they don't tend to cross over the veins. Whereas if there's a bit of yellow, I think that is probably leaf blotch, because leaf blotch doesn't care, it'll cross over the veins, and it's always got yellow around it. So some conker trees, horse chestnut trees, have got more than one problem at the same time. Leaf blotch is a fungus. They don't think that it's actually that serious. Again, it just makes the leaves look horrendous. You live in a city, a built up place where there's a lot of traffic, and you found that your conker trees have just gone totally brown, then that might be something called scorching. That's where the conker tree, the horse chestnut tree, isn't taking up enough water and it's losing too much water from its leaves. Those ones are dying, of dehydration. But the sort of good thing with that is that that's not spreading. That's a problem with urban areas. But actually, bleeding canker is the last one. That's where the trunk looks like it's bleeding a red liquid. I saw that in my park today as well. That's caused by the bacteria. That can also kill the trees, but it doesn't always kill them. Like, some of them are immune. So there's lots of horrible things going on with horse chestnut trees. But now I've done a lot of research, I kind of feel a bit better. Like, they're poorly and we need to try and help, but hopefully they're not dying. There you go. Right. We are going to do a story time. This is a bit of a treat. It's about forests. And then I'm going to show you a really, really cool thing you can do with conkers. So if you've got any conkers, you might want to get some adult to spend story time. chopping them up into little pieces and get a bowl of water. Yeah, here we go. Story time. Hi, George. Good to hear from you. Your leaves are too brown. Ah, Rosie, yeah, worried about that. If you collect them too early, it's no good, is it? But you'll undoubtedly find some more. Do a thought experiment with me, please. Imagine dropping a stone onto some grass and then picking it up again. And you look underneath. What is there? Probably not very much. Maybe a bit of bird poo. Now imagine a stone that looks like it's been sitting for quite a long time, and imagine lifting that up. What are you picturing underneath that stone? There might be slugs, worms, spiders, snails, woodlice, millipedes, all kinds of things. Now imagine a stone that has been sitting still for 400 years. What would be under that stone? 2.4% of England and Wales has ancient woodland that has been standing without any disturbance since the year 1600 or more. Are you ready to go to some ancient woodland? There you go. Ancient woodland is very different to more recent forests. So it's more stable, which encourages rare flowers and interesting creatures. There's dead wood on the ground, which might house rare beetles. And if you see bluebells, which are more colourful than this, I'm sorry guys, you know I've only got a black and white printer. Or if you see primroses, that is a sign that you're in an ancient wood. Same goes with wild garlic, something called barnacle lichen, lemon slugs. I'm not a biologist, but I imagine that they look a bit like this. Or ferns that look a bit like tongues. They are all signs that you are in an ancient forest. Now, they've been messed about with, have our ancient forests over the years. After the wars, some trees were chopped down and replaced with very fast-growing trees, which made a lot of shade and stopped the more sensitive plants from growing. Some people like to hunt in the woods, so they put game birds in the woods. And then they plant things like shrubs that the birds can hide under, and they also smother the native flowers, but that doesn't disturb what some say is the best thing about ancient woodland. It's soil. It's chemical free and it's rich in fungi and microorganisms. In 2009, Prime Minister Gordon Brown established a business called High Speed 2 Limited, or HS2, to look at building a new high-speed rail line to better connect London with the rest of the country. And a year later, the Prime Minister at the time, David Cameron, he said, yep, the railway was going to be built. The first phase would go between London and Birmingham, and it would cut 30 minutes, half an hour of the train journey. It would also cut through some ancient woodland. How much woodland HS2 was going to cut through? Not entirely certain. Listen to the numbers in this next bit and see how different groups use the same number in different ways. Okay, so HS2 says there are over 52,000 ancient woods, and the railway will affect 43 of them. And often they say affected really just means that a very small section is touched. So for example, 19 of the woods in the first phase of the railway, they'll lose less than 2.5 football pitches, for example. The Woodland Trust says that 52,000 might sound like a big number, but if those sites were combined, they would take up just 3/4 of the Cairngorms National Park. Now, if you're anything like me, you're thinking, how big, the Cairngorm what? How big is, okay, so this is the Cairngorm National Park, okay? And if you're still thinking, yeah, I can't tell how big that is, then no, I couldn't either. So that's a little bit of a zoom out of the Cairngorm National Park. So it's in Scotland, see? So this is Edinburgh and Glasgow. And if you're still thinking, Lara, I can't, that doesn't tell me anything, then yeah, I didn't get it either. Look, that's a map of Britain, and there's Cairngorm National Park is in yellow, okay? So our ancient forests fill about 3/4 of that yellow smudge there. So it's entirely up to you whether you think that that is a lot or not, and whether you think we can spare any. So the Woodland Trust say that people apply to cut down ancient forests all the time, and everyone who does thinks that their damage is very tiny and won't make a difference. But they say a lot of woodland hasn't been put on the map. and they say that it's 32 woods that are going to be directly affected, and 29 woods will be disturbed by noise and pollution. Now they say it's not just the amount of trees that's important. It's very important that woods have a big core area away from the outskirts, because that's better for wildlife. I feel like humans feel the same way. No one ever journeyed to the brightest, shallowest outskirts of the woods for a crazy adventure. So the HS2 would cut through some woodland and make it very difficult, or sometimes impossible, for animals to cross and get to their homes. HS2 Limited say that they want the railway to be good for the environment. So they're going to create 30% more green space along the route than was there already. And they're going to plant 7 million trees and shrubs to compensate. But the Woodland Trust say, no, this is ancient forest. It's the soil that's really important and irreplaceable in ancient woodland. So then HS2 said, well, that's okay, we've got a solution to that. We'll dig up the soil from the ancient forests, and then we'll just put it on the ground in our forest. And that process is called translocation. The Woodland Trust says translocation doesn't really work for ancient woodland. The soil in ancient woodland is in layers, it's been undisturbed for 400 years, so you can't just mix it up and put it back down again, because it means whatever grows there afterwards definitely won't be as valuable, and it might even allow seeds that have been lying dormant to sprout and choke the native plants. They say, look, it's really expensive and actually be better off just planting lots more trees. And also some animals, they can't be transported. Some of them you could put on a lorry and drive them to the new wood, but others you couldn't. Soil and everything. The Woodland Trust says that any new forest built would have to be monitored for at least 20 years. And HS2 said, oh, that's fine. Do you know what? Actually, we'll monitor it for 50 years. So a huge debate continued to rage. In August 2019, the government announced an independent review, August 2019 that is, of the project. And they said that anything was possible. They said that the HS2 railway, it might go ahead, or they might cancel it, or the plans might get altered. What happened next? You are going to have to come next week to find out. Yeah, that's right. This is a cliffhanger. Because I did so much research, as usual, I did far too much research into the HS2. And I thought even you guys probably couldn't tolerate a 20-minute story time. So next week our lesson is on trains, and we're going to finish off the HS2 story. So obviously you can Google it if you want, but don't spoil it for yourselves. Because you couldn't possibly Google it as hard as I've Googled it, frankly. Right. We can't really do a lesson on horse chestnut trees without finishing by looking at these guys. Conkers. Now the conker is the seed of the horse chestnut tree. You will probably know that it comes in a spiky little case like this. Look, I just found this one. It's so satisfying. Usually, obviously, I crush them with my foot, but I think I'm going to get away with this one. It's a double! Oh, live telly! I just opened a double conker in front of you. Come on, don't get that on the BBC, do you? Now, I don't want to be patronising, guys, but don't eat these. They are slightly poisonous. Wild boar eat them, and deer eat them. But I just found out something amazing. They've got something called saponin in them, which is a chemical that is a frothing agent. So you can kind of use them as soap. Get some water and put it in a bowl. So I'm going to do 1 bowl of just normal water to prove to you that it's not just that I really poorly rinse my bowls and I've got some washing up liquid in there. But ideally chop up your conkers so it's got a big surface area and pour them into the bowl, and then you just swish. That's the scientific term for it. So this is just my normal bowl of water, so just so you can see that when I swish this, yeah, no bubbles, okay? I'm going to give it a really good swish. Nothing. Let's swish this Obviously, really, to be good science, I'd have to swish exactly the same amount, wouldn't I? I don't know with what force I'm swishing. Can you see though? Look. How cool is that? I did not know this. So obviously it's not as stringent as like washing up liquid. But yeah, if you're out in the wilderness, apparently this is a really common thing to do. Good way to wash your clothes. And if you've ever seen a frothy puddle at the side of the road near a conker tree, apparently that's just conkers falling and then cars running over them. Isn't that great? I mean, these are proper bubbles. Oh, the Woodroofs are here today. Thank you so much for telling me all about that. Look, conker bubbles. Who knew? Folks, that is the end of Science Show Live for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Like I say, next week we're going to finish our storytime cliffhanger. We're going to learn about trains. You need a cup of rice and a pencil for that one, and a few other things if you're new, because I'll repeat an experiment because it was super cool. But I'll put an invite for that up on Facebook very, very soon. As usual, massive thanks to everyone who has been sharing what I'm doing. Really appreciate you liking my Facebook page. It brings me a sort of pathetic amount of joy, really. All the lessons that I did over lockdown and all the past shows are on YouTube, so if you want to go to my YouTube channel, Theatre of Science on YouTube, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, that would also be awesome. I cannot overstate how amazing the people are that support me on Patreon. Honestly, I do a little dance every time someone signs up. That's really cool. It's just very validating. Yeah, I think that's it. So join me next week. Thank you so much for coming. Bye! And then, as everyone knows, what time is it? Oh, I've got 60 seconds. I'm just going to have a little chat. Oh, Woodroofs, thank you so much. Well, you've definitely massively improved the show. Finn from Manchester. Oh, thanks, buddy. I'll see you again soon. Catchkid, you do your washing in conkers. See, Science Brain is thinking, it's probably not a coincidence. Maybe you're here because you really love conkers. Samantha found a bug in her leaf. Samantha, this is the kind of feedback I need. Thank you. Marcy, cheerio. Grace and Hattie, you're going conker hunting. That is perfect timing, isn't it? Oh, Sarah, thank you very much for coming. It's very good to see you. Michelle, again, thank you. So nice to see people's names popping up. Just as off. Lisa Claire, bye-bye. Omar, why didn't I say I came, I saw, I conquered? That was a good one. Oh, Katka, this was your first time. Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, glad your son enjoyed himself. Aaron hates cliffhangers. Sorry, Aaron. Sorry, dude. I thought about it and then I was like, oh, I can't do a 20-minute story time. Obviously, you would have said. Bye, Genevieve, age 9, Florence, age 6, Luca, age 2. And you love conkers and trains. Luca, it's a story time for you, isn't it? Yeah, a couple of people have asked about trains. We haven't really done anything to do with engineering, which is shocking because I'm a physics teacher. Bye, CJ and Oscar. All right, I'll let you go because it's like bedtime and tea time and all that stuff, isn't it? Bye.